Welcome to The Power Within, the podcast that uncovers the real stories and strategies behind leadership and personal growth. I'm Keith Power, and in each episode, I sit down with inspiring individuals who faced challenges, built resilience, and discovered what it takes to lead with impact. Through their journeys, we'll explore the mindsets and tools that drive meaningful success. If you're ready to grow, lead, and unlock your true potential, you're in the right place. My guest today is Alex Knight, founder and CEO of the Whisky Cask Club. This is a business built around whiskey casks. But look a little closer, and it's really about something else entirely, as we explore more stories of resilience, growth, and the power of determination. Most businesses are built for speed. Quick wins, fast growth, immediate results. But what happens when the entire model is built on patience? When you have to wait years to find out if you were right? Because that's exactly the world my guest today operates in. Welcome to The Power Within. This is the second episode of Series 3, and we focused on a conversation about conviction, trust, and long-term thinking in a short-term world. It's about seeing value before it's obvious. It's about building trust in a space not everyone understands. And it's about having the patience and the belief to stay the course when results aren't immediate. Because every founder at some point has that moment, this might not work, I might have got this wrong. Today we're going to explore what it really takes to build something on conviction, how you navigate doubt where integrity gets tested, and what leadership looks like when outcomes take years, not months. Alex, welcome to The Power Within. Let's jump right on in and ask, what drew you into the world of whiskey casks, and what point did you realize this was more than just an interesting niche?
One of my school friends, his dad owned a distillery, and for many years, I mean, he's still a very good friend of mine today. And in 2016, he said, you run an advertising agency, which I did, and after selling my magazines in 2014, let's do some advertising for some whiskey casks. I'm like, sure, fine. He's my mate, so yeah, give it a whirl. We did very well out of that, and I don't really think much about it again. It was essentially.
So it wasn't a strategic move.
Well, it became one.
Yeah.
But it only became one after COVID struck.
Right.
My advertising agency did a lot of work with companies like Berkeley Homes and Banyan Tree and things like that to organize events in places like, the Fullerton and those kind of hotels do those Saturday and Sunday events. So obviously that all got somewhat killed off when lockdown happened. And so it just became a bit of an idea to, my mate called me and goes, look, we all need to make some cash. I've got 3 children that I needed to feed and keep a roof over my head. So we started going into selling whiskey again. And whiskey is one of those things where you're selling a property, but you spend $500,000 on it, or £500,000, whatever. It's something that you really want to clap your eyes on before you spend the money. Whereas whiskey, it starts from £5,000. It's something you can stick on a credit card. It's a punt. If over the phone, over a Zoom call in those days, we're all on Google Meet now, but it was Zooms in the day. And so I'd send samples to people's house, only in Singapore. And, the lockdown gradually got lifted, so you'd meet people, and I was ending up selling 4 or 5 barrels of the stuff a week. And I thought, hang on, this looks like quite a good business to get into. Truth be told, I've never been an enormous fan of whiskey, but I am now.
You're a fan of most alcohols.
It's always something to be interested in, actually. The Scots have this very lovely phrase of, if you don't like whiskey, it just means that you haven't found the one you like. And over the last 8 to 10 years, I've found several I really like now, which is pretty helpful, seeing as that's what I do for a living now.
Superb. I have a good friend, you probably know him, he was a previous guest on here, Clinton Ang, and he has to drink, it's part of his job. But unfortunately, he's a typical Asian. There is something genetic. As soon as he has one drink, he reddens all over. It doesn't stop him drinking at all. But to be working in a space with something that you love anyway, and it sounds like your initial reticence about whiskey versus other drinks, that's gone away because you haven't just found one. You found many that you like.
If you don't like the peated whiskies, there's light Highland whiskies. There's Feta Ken, which is a very light whiskey, which is very lovely. But then, you discover that something like a Balvenie 14-year-old Caribbean cask is fabulous because it's quite sweet. It's lethal because it tastes like honey.
Like the old Alcopops that were out in the 80s and 90s, right?
Well, they've all turned into RTDs now. They're called ready-to-drink cans that you can buy in 7-Eleven.
Oh, yeah.
And we're developing a line of this at the moment because we think that this is a massive growth area. And so my colleague Jason and I are going around to all the shops going, let's buy a few cans of those.
Have you also seen, I've seen in a couple of the supermarkets now, where they are in like pouches, but ready to drink pouches rather than a can. And I don't know how successful that is.
Like
yet.
Sunkist, do you remember?
Yeah, exactly the same kind of packaging. So I don't know about Singapore, but the UK, those Alcopops, as we called them, became quite a problem because they were so attractive to young teenagers and even tweens who were drinking because you don't have the usual impact. If you taste a vodka, a whiskey, a gin, the first time you go, ooh. But there was none of that, so the barrier was removed for them. I wonder if in a country like Singapore, they might not seek to control that before it's born fully.
Well, you've got a really good point. And one interesting thing about these ready-to-drinks is that these cans of Alcopops, to use, there's no real better phrase for it, is that they're 9%.
Yeah.
Or 12%. And, they're not, it's not like you buy a can of beer and it's 4 or 5%.
Of course.
These are twice the strength, if not more.
Similar to a wine in alcoholic content?
Nearly, yeah. Okay. So, it's like buying, something that's nearly as strong as a glass of white wine. I mean, if white wine's got soda in it, it sort of the ABV drops dramatically.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because the wine typically is between 12 and 15%, depending. So if you dilute it with soda in it, it's going to have the ABV will drop. So these cans of Japanese grape or berry flavored, which some of them taste really good. Yeah, I don't know whether or not Singapore's going to do anything with it. It does seem that it's quite easy for kids to get hold of drink here.
I will place a bet here and now, 5th of May 2026, that if this takes off, kids start drinking it, they will clamp down quick, hard and fast.
Yeah.
Be mindful of that. But if you're heading in that direction, a very good friend of mine, we're at university together or business school together, Andy Marlowe's. He's got now the biggest bottling plant in Wales. He started out in gin. Now he does everything but the ready-to-drink stuff, squashes and soft drinks, everything. I need to connect you to if you're going to head in that direction.
That would be awesome because we can get stuff shipped. And also Wales has got some fabulous whiskey now too.
Yes, it's Penderyn being the key one. I saw that even on Singapore Airlines.
Oh,
Penderyn. I did a couple of years ago.
It's pretty good.
So you're operating in a space that most people, in all honesty, don't fully understand. What did you see early that others were perhaps missing in the space?
There's a lot of alternative investments out there, and crypto is particularly prevalent at the moment, and it's a real roller coaster. There are cars people collect, watches, jewelry, all sorts of different things, but they're quite volatile. One of the things that interests me with whiskey, the thing that I recognized pretty early on, that when you go into a shop or if you're in the airport, a 10-year-old bottle of whiskey, for the sake of argument, is $100. A 15-year-old one is $200. A 20-year-old one is So, and it's pretty consistent across brands. So it's not a Macallan does this uniquely. It's not Balvenie does it uniquely. They all do exactly the same thing, which means it's just demand. So if people are going to pay that, they demand it, and therefore there has to be someone to supply it. And all whiskey has to be in a barrel. If something's been 10 years old, it means it's been in a barrel for 10 years. It's not something that you can distill one day and sell the next, like gin or vodka, which, is great if you want to do that, but they're considerably cheaper. If you have a 30-year-old Macallan, for example, it's sat in a barrel, or possibly it's been moved to a couple of different barrels, but it's been in those barrels in the wood for 30 years. So it's had that time to mature in it, which makes it a very stable product and non-volatile, which is why it interests me the most, because it's not a volatile product. It's not like crypto, which could be $130,000 one day US and 60 a week or two later. It's a consistent and relatively linear.
One exception, but predictable. I forget what you use as the phrase for the losses, as in
angel share.
Angel share. So the longer it sits there, of course, there's an evaporation process underway. But again, is linear, and it's just another calculation. You can predict that.
It varies. When it goes in initially, it loses more for the first year or so. Then it on average, it's between 1% and 2% per annum. So if you're filling a 200-litre American Standard bourbon barrel, which is 200 litres, you're going to have about half of that left after 20 years.
Wow.
It depends. I mean, it depends on the storage. It depends if it's, certain circumstances. But the rule of thumb is that.
So partially, the price increase is the improvement in the complexity of the tasting, but also factoring in that you lose some on the way.
And it becomes more scarce because there's less of it.
Yeah.
So therefore the price goes up even more. That's all calculated in the pricing of all of these casks.
Do you find yourself fighting over the best casks with other people?
There have been sometimes, yes.
Yeah. You spent a long time in Russia. I don't think you'd have any problem with the fighting part.
People are pretty okay with me.
Let's be honest, like parts of the whiskey cask market, though, have a reputation for being opaque.
Yeah.
Not so clear, even questionable at times. So when you walk into that space, are you building trust or first having to overcome suspicion? And what do people get wrong about that?
We tend to start when a discussion, we talk about the whiskey obviously, but the provenance is obviously very important. All of our members of Whisky Cask Club can visit their casks in Scotland at any time.
Great excuse for a holiday.
Great excuse for a holiday. Good excuse if you have a few drams too. So the provenance is obviously really important. We talk about the bonded warehouse nature of it. That's all of the bonded warehouses in Scotland are regulated by HMRC, which is, as you know, it's His Majesty's Revenue and Customs. And
I'm still getting used to His Majesty.
Yeah, no, me too. When I started it was her.
Yeah, of course.
All of these companies are heavily regulated, obviously because the tax man wants his penny. If any drop leaves the building, they want their cut, don't they? So their eagle eye is paying attention to it. And, it's a big business. I mean, it's multi-billion-pound business. So the provenance comes down to the fact that these casks are put in these warehouses. And if you bought one, Keith, it would be in your name at the warehouse, and the warehouse would send you an email saying, we've got your cask.
Right.
So it's not us going, here it is.
Okay.
It's the warehouse, which is the HMRC regulated aspect of it, telling you that they've got it, which is third-party verification, which is incredibly critical for all of this sort of thing.
And there's no shortcuts around that one, that's for sure.
There's no way around the taxman in the UK.
Oh, for absolute certain. I've been overseas for 25 years. I still haven't escaped his clutches yet.
I got a call actually during COVID saying I owed a vast amount of money, and I'm like, there's absolutely no way that this is possible. I haven't lived in the UK since 2003.
How then does the taxman measure this angel share? Because it's disappearing for them, right?
So there's something called regauging that's done. Largely, it's the weight. So when a cask goes in, it gets weighed, and it, for the sake of argument, let's say it's 400 kilos when it gets weighed, or 300 kilos. That means that it's filled with, up to the brim, typically, it's roughly about 200 litres, give or take. As it evaporates, they weigh it again. So it weighs less, therefore they can calculate it. Then also, when it gets tipped out, that's when it gets disgorged, they can measure it from there too. So that's all the re-gauging part of it. And that it's quite straightforward. And the warehouse has been doing this for hundreds of years. So
it's like a regular recalibration, basically.
They don't do it unless it's requested.
Okay.
On some of the, because I mean, there are 30 odd million casks.
Wow.
30 million just in Scotland.
Wow.
So bearing in mind that every second, 44 bottles of whiskey, of Scotch, are exported from Scotland every second. That's
That's
1.5 billion
crazy.
bottles. So you can do the maths on that.
Yeah.
Like you need about 4 million barrels a year. So they don't even have 10 years supply.
Yeah, my God.
You don't re-gauge them all because all right,
gotcha.
As they're being disgorged, as needed. If it's an old cask, if it's a 20-year-old cask, yes, you'll probably want to re-gauge it quite regularly because you also need to test the alcohol by volume in it. Should that drop below 40%, it's not whiskey anymore.
Wow. What happens if it does drop below that? What does it become? How is it used?
It becomes worthless.
Right.
So you might as well just drink it.
So it's not that worthless.
Well, you can't sell it as whiskey.
Yeah, I get that. So that's, but these are all known risks. So what you're saying, if you compare it back to these cryptocurrencies, which are volatile, I know a lot of people living in Singapore who've made millions from it. I've also known people who've almost lost their shirts on that. This at least has this predictability about it. There are factors, but you're an expert, so you know those factors. You can advise your clientele very well. So it demystifies it. So this opaqueness that I referred to, you kind of pull the curtain back on that a little.
It's an OTC market. It's, the equivalent in commodities is like the oil market. There's no actual index of pricing.
Right.
We work with dozens of suppliers and dozens of distilleries. So we've got a good idea of what the actual value of casks is. So if someone offers us something, we can price it up pretty rapidly. I mean, it takes me 10 minutes normally to find out, if you've got a cask of 20-year-old Glenlivet that's got X amounts of litres in it, I can tell you what that's worth pretty quickly.
Okay.
But you can't go online and find it. Well, you can if you know where to look, but it's not that clear. So what we try and do is keep our clients updated on their pricing of their casks and what the litre of alcohol value is. Price per litre, which is actually quite straightforward to do. And that's what we try and lift the curtain on to some degree.
And when do you advise is bottling time? Is that a calculation or is it a personal thing?
It's up to the client ultimately. We've got lots of clients who buy new make spirit, which is not whiskey yet.
Right.
And it's something that is less than 3 years old because whiskey has to be 3 years old to be called whiskey, under law.
Yeah.
Most whiskey, for example, we've got casks of Bowmores and Lefroigs at the moment, which are you need to sit on them for 10 years. However, there could be independent bottlers or blenders out there looking for them to be blended at 4, 5, 6, 7 years, maybe. So it depends on when someone's exit horizon is, number one. And number two, if they want to bottle it and have it for them, or they want to bottle it and have it for themselves, or they just want to sell it and make profit out of it. So it's very subjective to really what people are interested in at the end of the day.
As I understand it, and I don't know too much detail, you also work in, let's call it futures for want of a better term, through the Whisky Cask Club, where people are the same as you see. I was in LPG for years. Every litre of LPG that's sold has been traded 20 times, 20 litres for every 1 litre. Is that a similar environment that you're talking about then? Are you on futures? How does that work? Investment where you're not physically the owner?
You are physically the owner, but it's a paper trade.
Oh, okay.
You do actually own the barrel itself, so you can take delivery. You're right, it does get traded, and because it is a commodity at the end of the day, we try and buy them directly from the distillery, but if we can't, we buy them from our suppliers, so they've bought it from the distillery. We're never more than one step away from the distillery, but if a client wants to sell it, then we'll either sell it on to another client,
right,
sell it to an independent bottler or a blender. It can be sold at auction, of course, but yeah, it is a tradable asset at the end of the day.
Quite literally a liquid asset.
Liquid asset, indeed.
So when you started in the whiskey business, what was the hardest, not commercially, but personally for you?
I like drinking.
Okay.
So it was getting...
What's hard about that?
Well, getting agreement from my long-suffering wife of 30 years to get her approval and not groan.
She thought it was a scam.
She thought it was a terribly bad idea.
Yeah. This was an excuse for Alex to go drinking with his friends.
Yes. She's come to like some whiskies over the years.
Oh,
too.
that's good.
So, I'm converting her slowly. But yeah, that was tough. I mean, and it's a business where you have to spend a lot of time with clients, which is not necessarily the most conducive thing to a happy family.
Of course.
So I think that's probably the most complicated aspect of it. But I do my best not to annoy my wife too much.
Tends to be a good strategy. At this point, maybe you should share. Singapore is definitely a crossroads where people mix and meet in various ways, especially in your business. But how we met is probably more bizarre than most, right?
It's one of the funniest stories.
So tell our listeners how we know each other.
About 7 years ago, I changed from one telco provider from Singtel or StarHub to somebody else.
Right.
They screwed it up and I couldn't port my number across.
Oh, right.
So I ended up having to get new phone numbers and had to give up my phone number. Now, my phone number, which is now your phone number, ends in 66.
Yeah.
The reason that I chose that number was because at the end of the day, I am an Englishman, and 66 was the last time.
Oh, you're still going on about that. That was 60 damn years ago. And if I hear anything more about the Rugby World Cup and that drop goal, I'm Welsh for those that don't know that. So basically, I got Alex's number as the short version of it. So I shared that number with my friend, Timothy Boxall.
That's right.
And he went, "Hey, mate." He said, "That's my mate Alex's number." I said, "Well, it's not now." And we kind of connected. And the good thing is, of course, because I know you, the calls are still come in, often sales leads, whatever. I pass them across. And I've never yet received any compensation, by the way, for that.
I do owe you lunch, I think.
We'll have lunch again soon. But yeah, it's the way you meet up varied, but this one is a pretty bizarre one. But it's a good one. We've known each other. We've met up for food. We've done events together, etc. It's great. It's really
brilliant.
cool.
It's such a great story too.
It's amazing. Was there a moment when you thought this might not work? I might have got it wrong. What did that feel like, and what stopped you from walking away?
When I just formed the company, it was, like everything, it's quite a struggle to get new clients in and find leads for this sort of quite unique asset. And there were times where I was thinking, God, this is, I don't know if this is going to work. I ended up having to think very creatively, which is when I approached a fund manager, a company here in Singapore run by a couple of Swiss guys. We realized that the best thing to do was to deal with these hurdles, was to get a whiskey cask fund going. From some thinking about how am I going to make this work, is it worth doing, to having to be the exclusive supplier to the whiskey cask fund, became that moment of inspiration out of some real mind racking to figure out how to make it work, or whether or not it was worth doing. And so that fund really gave us the push that we needed and the credibility to really push the company hard.
So you deal with Swiss bankers and investors, taxmen. Oh my gosh. Is this a business you really want to be in?
You've forgotten the insurance guys.
Oh, we didn't even touch on that. I imagine that that's an expensive part of owning a cask.
Actually, funnily enough, it's not. When you buy a cask of whiskey from Whisky Cask Club, you get 5 years of free storage, which includes the insurance that's provided by the bonded warehouse. If people have very expensive casks, which some do, we suggest taking independent insurance
separately.
For it. But it's, I think, £600, roughly $1,000 for up to £100,000 worth of insurance per year.
Oh, okay.
So it's not that bad. But it doesn't take into account angel share and things like that, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah.
So the Whisky Cask Club is built around long-term value. How has that shaped how you think and lead compared to more short-term, fast-paced industries?
I think that people realise that they've got to be patient with this. Mm-hmm. This isn't a quick in and out. There is trading that can be done. I mean, we do trade whiskey casks, so that's a short turnaround. But most of this is a 5 to 10 year hold.
Yeah.
And I think that anyone who's getting involved in it, I mean, we explicitly say that. This isn't a in and out, within a 2 year period. You've got to hang on to it for at least 3 years. Because if you don't and you want to sell it, and if you sell it through us, we charge an exit percentage.
Understandable.
We've got to pay our salespeople.
Yeah.
I think people who get into this understand it's not something that you can easily trade, and it's something that you've got to have to sit on for a period of time. But it also breeds the fact that it's not volatile.
Yeah.
And it is a long-term asset. I mean, you can trade real estate, but again,
it's slower. And has costs attached to it.
Exactly.
Very similar. But I was more getting to the point, your background in publishing and advertising is a much faster moving environment than this. So not so much from a client perspective, but now you're building a team of people around you. How do you inculcate with them this patient approach, a different way of working? In Singapore terms, it's slow, it's not exciting, unusually. Owning it is a pleasure, etc. But the excitement and the pressure doing things quickly is not there so much. How do you lead differently now than when you were in advertising and publishing?
We have a lot of parties, which is always quite a good thing to do. My team is comprised of old bankers, largely, and people in those kinds of industries, finance industries.
Right.
Working with these people, it's a different pace altogether. But everyone's eye is on the prize, which is to make this company into something that we could potentially turn into a generational project. That's what is in it for us in terms of with the team and how to get people to really stay interested in it long term.
And maintaining integrity through that period.
Exactly, because, I mean, if we do this correctly, I don't want to sell it to somebody particularly. I'd rather have... I got 3 kids, and they've all shown an interest in taking part in it at some point, because they see that this is it's something that if you have an asset like this, it's something that AI can't really replace.
Yeah, for sure.
The middleman's been cut out of stocks and shares of equities.
Yep.
Banking, we're all online now. We don't really need bankers anymore, particularly. I mean, obviously, large companies that are doing futures trading, it's slightly different. But even then, the futures desks have all gone from all the banks around the world. So, you've got a situation where you've got a team that knows that if we do it all correctly and we make sure that the exits happen in the way that clients want them to do, the people will reinvest in this as a long-term play, and we'll be able to set up a lot more of and build the fund that we have and turn it into something that's much larger and more tangible. It doesn't have to be fast business. It's just got to be constant business.
When you are looking for staff, how does that pan out in Singapore for you, finding staff who are able to see that vision, see that way of working. They like the parties, that's the easy part. How do you differ in your approach, and if you were looking for a new sales guy, for example?
It's tricky. There's no doubt about it. But there is good money to be made in it for salespeople because we pay pretty decent commissions. It always tends to be bankers or finance guys because they see the longevity in this kind of project. So we've never had any salespeople who've been doing FMCG, for example, like
so
that.
You don't have young whippersnappers.
Well,
looking.
I think the youngest member of the team's about 40.
I feel good now. Now, there's a romance in whiskey, of course, but it's also hard, has some hard commercial realities. How do you balance, we've talked a lot about the passion, with disciplined decision-making? Because this is your business, right? As much as you love the partying and the connections, etc., we're all in this to make money in the longer term. So how do you balance this passion you have with the disciplined decision-making?
When we sell casks of whiskey to people, we're very clear on the idea that when they exit, they need to make a good return on their investment. Right. So our discipline is making sure that we're selling casks that we know will have a good exit at the end of the day. There's a lot of cheap stuff on the market. It will be impossible to sell that in 5 years' time. I mean, it'll end up going into some blend somewhere and end up not making much money on it. And that's the thing. So our discipline is making sure that we choose the right casks to sell to people. Because I refuse to sell something that I know will be a very difficult or niche sell in a few years' time. I want them to be able to easily exit their casks.
So one thing that's coming through, you've not used the word, so I'll use it for you, much more than I thought before we started this interview, is integrity seems to shine through all of this, and it really matters because it's opacity of the product. You need to have the trust, and it sounds to me that you're embedding things, even if you're not thinking about it in this way, in integrity. And having bankers join in, and everything about it shines integrity to me, which was the opposite to what someone looking in from the outside might have thought. How does that land with you?
There are a lot of sharks in this market. There's no doubt about it. Last year there were a couple of big companies that went bust.
Right.
That were selling casks that didn't exist. One of them, a company called Brayburn, had a company listed here in Singapore, and those guys it caused ripples in the market. So our job is just to make sure that whatever we do is real and has, the clients have the ability to go and see their casks.
Right.
To draw whiskey from them. I mean, because they're there, they're real.
Yeah. Do you organise trips, by the way?
We have done, yeah.
Right.
They're very dangerous.
I bet. I don't know if you know Clinton, my friend, but you should meet each other. He periodically goes to Scotland because he's a massive golfer and he loves whiskey. So it's a long and very expensive trip for him. He's asked me to go, but these days I'm pretty much a non-drinker again. I've told you that story. So as this grows, though, there's always a temptation to move faster, to sell more, scale harder. Where's the line where growth starts to compromise this integrity? And have you ever come close to crossing it?
No, and we've no intention to do so. This is the good thing about this business is that the sky's the limit on it. The whiskey industry is worth tens of billions of pounds a year. And so, if we have even a small percentage of that, I'd be very happy. To be also part of selling such a great export that the UK has. I mean, we've got some really great stuff in the UK, and we were talking about Welsh whiskey also earlier, and some great English whiskey, but the granddaddy's Scotch.
Yeah, for our Irish listeners, that's pretty good as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty good. The fact is that this is a business that can scale,
infinitely,
largely, because there's 30-odd million casks under maturation in Scotland, so even a tiny percentage of that is a lot of whiskey. Would we break our integrity over something like that? I don't think it's really worth it. No. I think it's worth building something that in 30, 40 years when I'm no longer around, it's still operating. It's got...
You'll be around a lot longer than that. You're pickled from the inside, for goodness sake. So, Alex, which part of this business is you, and what part of it is performance, what you think a founder should look like?
I mean, I think my job is to be the figurehead of the company,
right?
And to answer customers' questions if they have them. Obviously, to do my song and dance at all these whiskey tastings that we do, but to let the team get on and do their jobs and just be there and to make sure that everything's running smoothly. And keep my eye open for new opportunities. I think that's kind of one of the most, certainly for me, it's always about what's the next opportunity, what's the next great cask. Because there's consistent, casks of Kalila, for example, new make, which is great because Kalila is a lovely whiskey. It's a smoky Isla. We look for those sorts of things. What's the next one out there that we can get our hands on? Are there new suppliers we should be working with? Is our bonded warehouse, the bonded warehouse we working with? Everything in order.
Is your bonded warehouse in UK or in Singapore?
It's all in Scotland. All in Scotland. Whiskey is only whiskey if it's bottled. Scotch whiskey if it's then bottled in Scotland. So.
And I forget which is which, but which one has the E in the whiskey? Is it the Irish or the Scottish? I always mix them up.
If it's on the island of Britain, it has no E. So Welsh whiskey does not have an E.
Same.
Scotch,
okay. So it's only
English.
Now,
Irish.
My brother started tracing our family tree a number of years ago, and we found a very direct link, not some sinuous one, but a very direct link with a power distillery.
Oh.
I just wonder if I should be tapping them up for my share.
Absolutely.
I would call myself an angel to take my share. So if the business disappeared tomorrow, no Whiskey Cask Club, Alex, who are you without it, and how comfortable are you with your answer to that as well?
It would be very sad, obviously. But I do have I publish multiple websites, so I'm pretty okay with doing all of that sort of thing. I have the advertising side of it behind me too. If I was to win the lottery and end up in Tahiti, for example, would it be a terrible thing? Yeah, well, I'd miss it, actually. Yeah. But because I like the business.
You'd be bored in Tahiti.
Bored to death.
Yeah, for sure.
And, the whiskey business is fun. You get to meet some really interesting people. You get to try some amazing whiskies. And it's not just the 150-odd distilleries that there are currently in Scotland. It's all the finishes that the whiskey get put into. So there's, if I wasn't involved in it, I wouldn't be trying as many different varied finishes and different whiskies, and I'd miss that.
So that was an upside that you never saw coming, basically. When you look back on your journey so far, what have you discovered about your own power within?
Abstention. Or lack of it.
Okay, right.
I'm a better negotiator now than I used to be. A much better negotiator. Having been running this operation for some years now, I can spot nonsense a mile away.
Right.
My general cynicism meter is much more finely tuned nowadays. Okay. I find that I get a lot of power from my team, who are some consummate professionals, and I get the electricity from them, which I like to channel into what we're doing as a company and who we work with, and who our clients are.
Come back a little. You said about this, you've become a better negotiator. What do you attribute that to, though?
Having to buy things from the Scots.
For those who are not familiar, if you're a Brit, if you're from the UK, we all have jokes about the different parts of the UK, and the Scottish are known as being particularly careful with money and exceptionally good negotiators.
Exceptionally good negotiators.
So you've learned from the best.
I have indeed. And I've got a lot of respect for our Scottish brothers.
Same. Fellow Celts for me.
Well, I'm half Scottish, so my mum was Scottish. So it's
top, bottom, or left, right?
Not entirely sure.
Well, I've just sent off for a DNA test kit to find absolutely all of my origins. And I know there's going to be some English dotted around in there, and I'm dreading that finding.
My half-sister's mother was from Wales, so
I knew there was something about you I liked. But my grandfather on my mother's side was born in a village that switched England to Wales as a border town. And on his birth certificate, it lists the address as England. Today is in Wales. So when I saw that, literally my heart sank. Let's go on. Right. This has been fun already, but even more fun part now. Some quick fire questions for you. Don't think. Don't just react. Just say what it is. If it's swear words, we'll bleep them out later. So, you ready? One quality every founder must protect.
their team.
One mistake that taught you the most.
A bad cask purchase, which I ended up having to eat the cost of.
Patience or instinct, which matters more in the world?
Patience.
One word that defines your business.
Fun.
For sure. And the moment that you almost walked away.
When I'd run out of cash.
Generally, that's a good reason, right?
But then I had a client that came in and did a very nice deal, which saved the day.
Saved you, took you from the lion's jaws, so to speak.
Very much so.
And if your business were a person, what 3 words would describe it?
Tall, leggy, blonde.
I like that answer, but no, we'll leave it. I think that's good. Now, you, Alex Knight, 3 words to describe you.
Drink less needed.
Alex, it's been a pleasure, as always.
Thank
you very much for coming in.
Thank you so much, Keith. It's been a real pleasure indeed.
It's been an eye-opener for me. Thanks a lot. Today's conversation with Alex is a reminder that not everything of value reveals itself quickly. In a world that rewards speed, visibility, and immediate results, there's something powerful about choosing patience, about staying the course when outcomes are uncertain, because leadership isn't always loud. Sometimes it's holding your nerve when everything else tells you to move faster. The willingness to trust your judgment before the world catches up. Alex, thank you for joining me. And if this conversation resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, this is The Power Within.